The wind howled across the frozen wasteland, carrying sharp flakes of ice that stung Elias's face. His small garage sat at the edge of the abandoned colony, a lonely building filled with old tools, broken machines, and half-finished repairs. He pulled his coat tighter, his boots crunching against the hard snow as he worked outside, fixing a solar generator that hadn't seen life in years. The colony was silent, empty, except for the distant cries of the cold wind. Elias was used to silence. He liked it, sometimes. It gave him space to think. But tonight, something was different. A faint sound cut through the wind, a soft, tiny whimper, almost like a child crying. He froze, listening. It was weak, scared, and desperate. He followed the sound, stepping carefully over snowdrifts and broken metal scraps. The whimper grew louder, more urgent. It led him to the edge of the garage, where a small pile of snow had drifted into a corner. He bent down and brushed it away, his heart stopping for a moment. A little dragon, no bigger than a dog, shivered in the snow. Its scales were pale blue, almost translucent in the dim light, and frost covered its tiny wings. Its eyes were wide, glowing faintly with fear. Its tail curled around its body as it tried to stay warm, but it was too small, too weak, too cold. Elias's first thought was disbelief. Dragons didn't exist here, or anywhere humans had seen for hundreds of years. And yet, this tiny creature was real, trembling, and alive. He knelt closer, speaking softly. Hey, it's okay. You're safe now. His voice was calm, gentle, even as his heart raced. The dragon flinched at first but didn't run. It seemed to sense something in his tone. Carefully, Elias picked it up. The little dragon's body was so fragile it felt like holding a wet cloth. It made small noises, soft squeaks that tugged at his heart. He wrapped it in his coat, pressing it close to his chest for warmth. The creature's warmth was almost nothing, just a faint pulse, but it was alive. That was all that mattered. Inside the garage, the air was warmer, though still cold. Elias set the dragon down on a pile of old blankets and began to clear the snow from its tiny body. Frost fell off its scales in little clumps. He gently brushed its wings, careful not to hurt them. The dragon watched him with wide eyes. Elias noticed tiny scratches on its legs, and one wing seemed bent in the wrong direction. It had been running from something or someone. He wondered what could have hurt it. On this frozen planet, it couldn't have survived long alone. Elias went to the workbench and grabbed a small heat lamp, placing it near the dragon. The warmth made the creature shiver less, and it slowly began to stretch its tiny limbs. For a moment, it looked up at him, almost as if it understood him. "Don't worry," Elias whispered. "You're safe here. I won't let anything happen to you." He could feel its small heart beating fast, matching his own pulse. He had never seen anything like it. He had repaired machines, fixed engines, and survived storms, but he had never faced a living being that depended entirely on him like this. Outside, the wind still roared, rattling the garage walls. Elias glanced at the horizon, half expecting someone, or something, to appear. But the land was empty, silent again. It made him uneasy. Why was this dragon here? Why was it alone? He couldn't answer, but he knew one thing: he wouldn't leave it to die. As he fed the dragon small pieces of dried meat and warm water from his flask, it slowly began to trust him. Its shivering eased, and it even nuzzled against his hand. Elias felt a strange connection, something he couldn't explain. He had rescued creatures before, injured animals and stray pets, but this was different. There was intelligence in its eyes, and a quiet strength that made him feel like it could survive if he helped it. Hours passed. The blizzard outside raged on, but inside the garage, there was a fragile peace. Elias sat back, exhausted, and watched the dragon curl up on the blankets. Its eyes closed, but he could see its chest rising and falling with life. For the first time that night, he allowed himself to breathe. He didn't know what the future held. He didn't know where the dragon had come from or what dangers it had faced. But he knew one thing with certainty: this small, cold dragon had crawled into his life for a reason, and he would protect it. A quiet whisper escaped his lips as he looked down at the tiny creature. "You're safe now, you don't have to be afraid anymore." The dragon stirred, lifting its head, and for a brief moment, its glowing eyes met his. In that gaze, Elias felt something he couldn't describe: hope. Something told him their meeting was only the beginning. Something told him that the galaxy was about to notice the courage of a single human willing to protect the helpless. Outside, the storm continued, but inside the garage, a small light glowed. A spark of life, a bond forming between human and dragon, and a promise that together, they would face whatever came next. Elias stayed awake through the night, watching the little dragon. It slept in a curled-up ball on the pile of blankets, its faint blue scales glowing softly in the dim light of the heat lamp. Every so often, it stirred, opening its tiny eyes and looking around, as if afraid the danger had returned. Elias kept his hand close, ready to comfort it if it woke fully. By morning, the storm had passed. Snow still blanketed the land outside, and the frozen wasteland looked endless. But inside the garage, the dragon had changed. It was calmer, its shivers less frequent, and it even tried to move around on its small legs. Elias smiled, feeling a spark of hope. "You're stronger than I thought," he said quietly, watching the dragon stumble over a blanket. "We'll get you better." He spent the morning examining it carefully. Its wing was bent but not broken. Its small body was bruised and cold, but it seemed to recover quickly. Elias realized that dragons, even tiny ones, were tougher than they looked. He felt a mixture of awe and curiosity. How had this creature survived alone in such a harsh world? The little dragon lifted its head and looked at him. Its eyes glowed faintly again, like soft lanterns in the morning light. Elias noticed that it wasn't just watching him, it was understanding him. It tilted its head when he spoke and made soft chirping noises that sounded like questions. Elias laughed quietly. "I don't understand everything you're saying, but I'll try." He reached out slowly, and the dragon leaned into his hand. It was a small gesture, but it felt huge. Trust had begun. As he worked to warm it further, Elias thought about the world outside the garage. This wasteland was dangerous. There were scavengers, storms, and who knew what other creatures. And if this dragon had been here alone, something must have been hunting it. He had to be careful, but he also knew he couldn't let fear stop him from helping. He fed it small bites of dried meat and offered warm water from his flask. The dragon sniffed, then began to eat carefully. Every bite seemed to make it stronger. Elias watched, feeling proud. He had saved it from freezing to death, but now he needed to help it heal. Throughout the morning, the dragon began to move more confidently. It tested its wings, stretching them slowly. Elias noticed a faint shimmer along the edges, like light passing through thin ice. He reached out, letting the dragon feel his hand along its wing. It didn't flinch. Instead, it seemed to respond, pushing gently against him. "You can't fly yet," Elias said, "but soon, maybe." He felt a strange sense of connection to this creature. It wasn't just a dragon. It was something extraordinary, something that had chosen to trust him. Later, as the sun reflected off the snow outside, Elias tried talking to the dragon about what might have happened. "Did someone hurt you?" he asked softly. "Were you running from something?" The dragon made a low, pulsing sound and lowered its head. Elias frowned. Whatever had chased it must have been dangerous, but he didn't know what. He decided to check outside. He wanted to see if there were tracks or any sign of danger. Carefully, he lifted the dragon and stepped into the snow. The cold bit at his face, but he ignored it, scanning the white wasteland. There were no tracks, only the wind's patterns and scattered ice. Still, Elias felt uneasy. Something had brought the dragon here, and he could feel it in the air. Danger was near. When he returned to the garage, he placed the dragon down again. It looked up at him, blinking slowly. Elias smiled. "Don't worry. I'll keep you safe. I promise." The dragon chirped softly, almost like it was answering him. Elias didn't know if it truly understood words, but the feeling was enough. He spent the rest of the day building a small shelter inside the garage. He used spare wood, metal sheets, and blankets to make a cozy corner for the dragon, where it could rest without fear. He even rigged a small lamp to keep it warm at night. Every time he worked, the dragon watched him, following his movements with bright, curious eyes. By evening, Elias felt a strange sense of calm. The little dragon had become more than a responsibility, it was a companion. He couldn't explain why, but he felt like he had known this creature for longer than just a day. Its presence filled the garage with something alive and hopeful. As night fell again, Elias sat near the dragon, keeping watch. He noticed that the dragon's scales reflected the lamp's light in soft shades of blue and white. It moved closer to him, nuzzling his arm. Elias whispered, "You're safe now, you don't have to be afraid." The dragon's eyes glowed briefly, like it understood. Outside, the wind howled again, but inside, there was warmth. A bond had begun between human and dragon. Elias felt a thrill of awe, he had never encountered anything like this before. The galaxy was a vast and dangerous place, but for this small moment, he had made a difference. He leaned back, tired but alert, and looked at the dragon sleeping peacefully. Something inside him told him this was only the beginning. There was more to the dragon than met the eye. And somewhere in the galaxy, someone, or something, was watching. Elias didn't know what the future would bring, but he knew one thing clearly: he would protect this little dragon, no matter what. The night was quiet at first, but Elias could feel tension in the air. The little dragon lay curled on the blankets, its small body warm now, but still trembling occasionally. Elias sat nearby, keeping watch. He knew the wasteland was dangerous, and he couldn't shake the feeling that something, or someone, was coming. Hours passed, and then he heard it, a faint hum, almost like the sound of metal moving across ice. His eyes darted to the garage's small window. Out in the snow, he saw shapes moving through the white. Figures, tall and armored, carrying strange weapons that glowed faintly. They weren't human. Elias's stomach tightened. The dragon stirred, sensing the movement outside. Its eyes opened wide, glowing with an inner light, and it let out a soft hiss. Elias whispered, "Stay calm. I've got you." But the creatures outside didn't stop. They approached the garage with slow, careful steps, scanning the area. Elias knew he had to act fast. He ran to the workbench and grabbed whatever tools he could find, a welding torch, some scrap metal, and a coil of wire. He began setting small traps, using his knowledge of machines to make alarms and barriers. He had faced storms, wild animals, and scavenger attacks before, but this was different. These were aliens, and they were organized, armed, and dangerous. The dragon watched him work, tilting its head, as if trying to understand. Elias felt a surge of determination. "I will not let them take you," he thought. "Not while I'm alive." The first alien reached the garage door. Elias triggered a small trap, and a net of wires shot across the door, momentarily stunning it. Sparks flew, and the alien hissed, struggling against the net. Elias felt a small thrill of hope. The alien was powerful, but he had brains and courage, and the dragon beside him. The dragon, sensing the danger, began to move. It stepped forward cautiously, its small body glowing faintly. Elias noticed that energy seemed to hum along its scales, tiny pulses that reacted to his voice. When he whispered, "It's okay, little one, we can do this together," the dragon's glow intensified. He didn't fully understand it, but he knew one thing: the dragon could fight back. Another alien reached the door, stronger and faster. Elias threw a piece of metal, hitting a control panel nearby. Sparks flew, and the alien screamed in surprise. The little dragon leapt forward instinctively, its tiny claws glowing with energy. A burst of icy wind shot from its mouth, slamming against the alien. It staggered, dropping its weapon. Elias's heart pounded, he hadn't expected that. The dragon seemed to grow braver with every move. Elias realized it was not just a creature, it was powerful, intelligent, and capable of defending itself. Together, they could stand against these intruders. But he also knew the aliens wouldn't give up easily. They were organized, and they would come back stronger if needed. He ran to another part of the garage, setting up a few more traps. The dragon followed, moving quickly despite its small size. They worked as a team, Elias improvising, the dragon instinctively helping. Sparks flew, metal bent, and the air filled with the smell of burning circuits. For the first time, Elias felt a rush he hadn't felt in years, the adrenaline of real danger, fighting for life and trust. The aliens managed to break through a small panel in the wall. One of them stepped inside, towering over Elias and the dragon. Its eyes glowed red, scanning the room. Elias backed up, holding a makeshift spear, his heart racing. The dragon hissed, its small body glowing brighter. Elias whispered again, "Now, little one." The dragon exhaled a blast of icy energy, stronger this time. It hit the alien full force, sending it crashing into the wall. Elias didn't wait. He ran forward, striking the alien's weapon with all his strength, and managed to knock it to the floor. The creature groaned, struggling but clearly stunned. For a moment, there was silence. The dragon's glow faded slightly, but it remained alert. Elias's chest heaved as he looked around. The rest of the aliens had retreated outside, at least for now. But he knew this was only temporary. They would come back, and they would be stronger. He knelt beside the little dragon, brushing frost from its scales. "You did amazing," he whispered. The dragon leaned into him, tired but still alive. Its eyes met his, glowing faintly, and for a moment, Elias felt a connection stronger than anything he had ever felt. They were partners now, bound by courage and trust. Outside, the wind howled again, carrying the echoes of the retreating aliens. Elias knew the garage was safe for tonight, but the threat had only grown. Somewhere in the galaxy, someone, or something, was watching, and they wouldn't stop until they had the dragon. Elias sat back on the floor, the little dragon resting against his chest. He felt a mix of exhaustion and hope. They had survived the first attack, and together, they could survive more. He didn't know what the future would bring, but one thing was clear: the courage of one human, paired with the trust of a small dragon, could stand against even the strongest enemies. He whispered softly, more to himself than the dragon, "We'll face whatever comes, together." The dragon stirred, nuzzling his hand, a small but fierce spark of life and defiance glowing in its eyes. The storm outside seemed less threatening now. Inside the garage, a bond had formed between human and dragon, a bond that could not be broken, even by the galaxy's darkest dangers. Morning came slowly, with soft light spilling into the garage. The storm had passed, leaving a pale frost over the wasteland. Elias sat on the floor, leaning against a crate, and watched the little dragon stretch its wings. They were still weak and small, but something about them shined with energy. He could feel it, this dragon was more than it seemed. The night's battle had changed them. The dragon was no longer trembling. Its eyes glowed brighter, showing confidence and intelligence. Elias reached out a hand, letting it feel his fingers along its scales. The dragon leaned into him, pressing its small head against his palm. There was a strange understanding between them, almost like a conversation without words. "You're stronger than I thought," Elias whispered, brushing frost from its wings. "And smarter, too." The dragon chirped softly, and Elias laughed quietly. He had never seen a creature so fragile and so powerful at the same time. Every instinct in him told him that this dragon could survive anything, if it had him to help guide it. Elias moved to the workbench and pulled out some old tools and scraps. He needed to make the garage safer, just in case the aliens returned. As he worked, the dragon followed him, hopping onto crates, watching him carefully, occasionally nudging a piece of metal or a tool with its tiny claw. It was curious, but Elias noticed something deeper: the dragon reacted to his intentions. If he whispered or made a careful movement, it responded almost immediately. "Okay," Elias said softly. "I think you understand me." The dragon chirped again, tilting its head. He felt a shiver of awe. This wasn't just instinct or survival. It was something more, bonded, like they shared the same purpose. Hours passed. Elias fed the dragon, cleaned its tiny scratches, and warmed it near the lamp. Then, something remarkable happened. The dragon stepped back, raised its head, and exhaled a soft, shimmering breath. The frost in front of it sparkled and cracked in little icy patterns. Elias froze, eyes wide. "Whoa," he whispered. You can do that?" The dragon chirped again, looking at him as if to answer. Elias realized that it wasn't just surviving, it was defending itself. And more than that, it seemed to sense his courage and determination, reacting with strength. A small thrill of hope ran through him. Together, they could face dangers bigger than either could handle alone. Elias thought about the aliens. They would return. They would be stronger. But now, he wasn't alone either. This little dragon, fragile as it seemed, had powers he was only beginning to understand. It trusted him, and he would never betray that trust. He spent the afternoon testing the dragon gently, encouraging it to move, to stretch, and even to use small bursts of energy. Each time it responded, Elias whispered encouragement. "Good. That's it. You're learning. I'm right here with you." The dragon chirped and shifted closer, leaning against him for warmth. For the first time, Elias felt a deep sense of connection. He wasn't just protecting a creature. He was part of a partnership, a bond forged in danger, trust, and care. He realized something important: courage wasn't just about fighting. It was about protecting those who could not protect themselves, and helping them grow stronger. As night fell, the garage was quiet again. Elias lay down beside the dragon, letting it curl against him. He thought about the galaxy outside, about the dangers that waited, about the aliens who would return. But he also thought about the possibilities. This dragon was special. It had powers no one else had seen. And together, they could face the world. Then, a soft hum filled the air. Elias sat up, tense. Outside, a faint light glowed on the horizon. He squinted. The light wasn't random, it moved deliberately. The dragon stirred, sensing it immediately. Its eyes glowed brighter, body tense and ready. "Looks like company," Elias whispered. He felt no fear this time, only determination. Whatever was coming, they would face it together. The dragon's small head pressed against his chest, as if reassuring him. And in that moment, Elias realized something incredible: this creature was more than a dragon. It was a friend, a protector, and a companion who could sense courage and loyalty in humans. He smiled, brushing the frost from its scales. "You've changed everything," he whispered. "We'll face them together, no matter what." The light outside grew brighter. Elias stood slowly, keeping the dragon close. He looked at the horizon, knowing the aliens, or something even worse, were coming. But he didn't feel fear. He felt hope. And with the dragon beside him, he felt unstoppable. The little dragon lifted its head and let out a soft, glowing chirp. Elias nodded. "I hear you. We'll fight. We'll survive. Together." The night was no longer empty or silent. Inside the garage, a bond had grown stronger than any storm. A human and a dragon, small but powerful, ready to face the galaxy. And somewhere, far away, others were watching. But Elias didn't care. He had a companion who understood courage. And together, they would not fail. The next morning, the horizon glowed with pale light, casting long shadows across the frozen wasteland. Elias stood at the garage entrance, the little dragon resting against his shoulder, its soft blue scales shimmering in the early sun. The night's events had changed everything. They were no longer just survivor and rescued, they were partners, bound by trust and courage. Elias scanned the horizon. The aliens had left, but he knew they would return. The little dragon stirred, sensing movement in the distance. Its small body tensed, and a faint glow appeared along its wings. Elias whispered, "Stay close. We can do this." Suddenly, a shadow fell over the garage. One of the alien scouts had returned, moving carefully through the snow. Elias acted without thinking. He grabbed a piece of metal and hurled it, setting off a trap he had prepared the day before. Sparks flew as the alien stumbled, cursing in its harsh language. The little dragon leapt from Elias's shoulder, its wings flaring with icy light. It exhaled a pulse of energy that swept across the snow, knocking the alien off its feet. Elias rushed forward, wielding a welding torch like a weapon, and drove the creature back. Together, human and dragon were unstoppable. The aliens realized quickly that this was not a simple prey. They regrouped, but Elias had an idea. He led them toward a maze of scrap metal and traps he had built around the garage. The dragon followed, small but fast, reacting instantly to Elias's commands and movements. Every time an alien came close, the dragon used bursts of icy energy, slowing them down. Every time they attacked, Elias used his tools and clever tricks to hold them at bay. Hours passed. The aliens tried everything: blaster guns, sharp weapons, heavy armor, but nothing worked. Human ingenuity and dragon power combined made them unpredictable and deadly. The little dragon grew stronger with every pulse of energy, its wings stretching further, its eyes glowing brighter. Elias felt a surge of pride. He had saved this creature, but together, they were unstoppable. Finally, the aliens retreated. Their ships flew into the distance, leaving the wasteland silent again. Elias collapsed onto a snow-covered crate, exhausted, but the little dragon landed beside him, nuzzling his hand. Its glow faded slightly, but the warmth in its small body radiated trust and gratitude. Elias smiled. "You did it," he whispered. "We did it." As the sun climbed higher, a new presence appeared on the horizon. A group of humans approached, dressed in advanced gear that Elias had never seen. They moved with confidence and purpose. At their center was a tall figure, older, with eyes that held experience and kindness. Elias realized immediately, they were dragon protectors, a secret human faction that had watched over dragons for generations. The leader smiled at Elias. "You've done something extraordinary," he said. "You saved a dragon. And not just any dragon, a rare one, with power the galaxy has not seen for centuries." Elias looked down at the little dragon, who chirped softly and nudged his chest. He realized that their bond had been noticed, and it had changed more than just their lives. It had earned respect, and perhaps even a place in a larger mission. "You could join us," the leader continued. "Help protect dragons. Help protect the galaxy." Elias's eyes widened. This was more than he had ever imagined. But he glanced at the dragon, resting against him, and he knew the answer. He nodded. "Yes. Together." The humans approached, offering supplies, medicine, and a safe place for the dragon to grow. Elias worked quickly, integrating their technology with his own garage setup. The dragon responded eagerly, spreading its wings, testing its strength, and even producing small bursts of energy that lit up the walls. It was alive, powerful, and learning. Elias and the dragon trained side by side. The dragon's wings grew stronger, its energy pulses more controlled. Elias taught it strategies, movements, and trust, and the dragon taught him patience, courage, and wonder. Together, they became a team no one could break. Weeks later, the little dragon was no longer tiny. Its scales shimmered like icy sapphire, its wings strong enough to lift Elias into the sky. The wasteland that had once seemed endless and empty now felt like the beginning of something extraordinary. The storm that had brought them together was long gone, replaced by sunlight, warmth, and hope. Elias stood on a ridge, the dragon beside him, looking out over the vast land. He could feel the future waiting, challenges, battles, and adventures. But he wasn't afraid. He had courage, intelligence, and a companion who could sense his intentions, his bravery, and his heart. "You and I," he whispered to the dragon, "we can face anything. We can change the galaxy." the dragon chirped, glowing faintly in agreement. Together, human and dragon rose into the air, wings cutting through the cold wind. The horizon stretched endlessly, filled with possibilities, danger, and hope. Elias had saved a life, and in return, that life had made him stronger, braver, and unstoppable. And somewhere, far across the galaxy, the echoes of their courage would be felt. The small, cold dragon and the human who whispered, "You're safe now," had begun a story that no one would forget. They soared together, unstoppable, bonded, and ready for whatever the universe could throw at them. And for the first time, Elias knew that even in the darkest, coldest places, humans could shine brighter than any star.